Ladies and gentlemen, grab your coffee and get comfortable because it's time for Coffee with Khosi. Welcome back to yet another episode of Coffee with Khosi. Today's guest is one for the books. She is an incredible actress and singer. Please help me welcome Nirvana Nokwe.
I'm good, girl. How are you?
It is so great to have you around. Tell me, have you always wanted to be an actress?
I definitely did. I wanted to direct first.
Okay.
But yeah, it was kind of like a natural thing because of the training I used to go through every single Saturday from childhood. So
what do you mean? What do you mean training?
Yeah. So my family had an arts and culture school. Mm-hmm. It was an outreach program called Amachiga Youth and Children Arts. Oh. And essentially they would take ingane from Ekasi and basically train them in the arts and admin within the arts, international relations. Wow. And so every single Saturday, siya dansa, siya kita, we're learning how, like indigenous instruments and acting. So yeah, that's what I mean by training.
So basically you've never really seen yourself or saw yourself doing anything outside of art?
I definitely saw myself in politics and law. Mm-hmm. And I think because of my relationship with people in politics and law, I think it's leaning more towards that in terms of advocacy work for the industry.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, I hear you, but tell me about your upbringing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hear you saying that your family was very much involved in the entertainment industry at maybe a certain scale at that time. Mm-hmm. But tell me, how was it like being Nirvana growing up? I hope I'm right, in Durban.
In Joburg, actually.
You were a Joburg baby.
Yeah, I was born and raised. I'm so
disappointed. I can't lie.
I was born and raised here. I mean, of course, home base for me, like my mother's home, was here. Mm-hmm. But Ekai Kulu is in Guamashu. Mm-hmm. And so spent a lot of time that side as well as like Goli. And then we'd also used to like travel across the globe. But there's an aspect of my childhood that I don't talk about enough. That's when we were living in Malvern, Denver.
Okay.
And that was like opposite a train station, Gase George Koch. And there used to be like, so we used to stay with Mamkulu Ami. And Mamkulu used to own a rehearsal space. Mm-hmm. And this place it used to be like a white neighborhood and then and then it came Ikasi.
Really?
Yes. And so, it was so interesting.
Where was that?
Malvern in the east.
East of what?
East of Joburg, yes.
East, no west, no south.
Oh, yes.
But we don't know that.
Okay, Mama Name, do you know that?
Yes.
So Jeppystown is like right next to Kensington. Yes. Okay. So, that was like an interesting part of my childhood because you get to experience the higher highs of life. Yes. And then the lower lows of life. Mm-hmm. And then also being exposed to so many musicians. Ekasi, rehearsing at your aunt's place.
Right.
When my mom hit a kind of wall in terms of, finances, things happen.
Yeah.
So, sahlala no mamkhulu and man, ngigibela abateksi ngibuye ekhaya ngabo 8 ebusuku running like njahohlanya lapha that were living up in Malvern.
How old were you around that time?
I'm trying to think. In Malvern, I think 14, 15, 16 until I was about 20 something.
Wow.
Yeah, I think 21 I moved out of home in Malvern.
You mentioned traveling around the globe and all of that. And then now we're back in Melbourne, living.
The contrast.
Yes. I mean, how do we go from being on a plane to being in Melbourne, being chased by crazy people?
I mean, it's just a symptom of where we're at as South Africa.
Yeah.
I think the reality is that, we don't live in a very equal society. Mm-hmm. And then our industry, we don't have labor laws. Mm-mm. So there's a lot of things that go unregulated and a lot of people get taken for granted and taken advantage of. And it really is just a symptom of a dysfunctional society. for a long time, it just was confusing to me until I grew up and I experienced the industry myself. And I'm like, oh no, like we have a lot of work to do. And I think that's why I have so many, I maintain my connections with people in law, because we really are trying to, in our different pockets, transform the South African entertainment industry so that it is a sustainable economy for the people working in it. But yeah, that's honestly what it is. And I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful. I got to experience Malvern. Like Malvern is my home. It's so funny because for I think it was 2 to 3 years of my life, I was practicing Islam. Because Mamkulu remarried into Islam.
Okay.
And so I started praying with her because I got into like a physical fight with someone that I was fending off.
Okay.
A man. And
of course.
And then, I was fending off a man and I was so young, and she was just like, she didn't say anything, and she was like, just come pray. Just come pray with me. And then there was like a little mosque where we used to live, and it was Mamkulu's home, then Begui, I'm a taxi driver, and then it was this mosque. And then, I don't know, there were just some experiences that you can't buy with money.
Right, I hear you.
And the more I grow up, the more my faith strengthens, I realize how blessed I am to have had that experience, going into that mosque and experiencing the love of God. And Malvern, yes. So yeah,
I really want to touch on your spirituality, but we're just gonna pause that for a while. I want you to tell me, yes, you've been into drama, art all your life, pretty much. It's it's easy as breathing for you. It's just so natural. But then, how do you make it to the big screen? Because a lot of people got introduced to Nirvana through
Outlaws.
Outlaws, the Showmax hit show, Outlaws. Before that, we don't really know the story, and that was the time we were introduced to this lovely, pretty woman.
Thank you.
So do you want to tell us how that came to be?
So a lot of people think Outlaws was my first, and no, I actually been doing it for 11 years. So auditioning, going into smaller shows, going on to SABC shows, that people aren't necessarily, that aren't as hyped up as Outlaws.
Yes.
And so that once, how do they call that, overnight success? So that breakthrough that people think I got the first time. It was just like, no, this was 10 years
of course
in the making. Really just putting my head down and going to auditions as much as I possibly could, and perfecting my craft and just getting better and developing as a human being. I don't think we emphasize how much as a human being you need to develop. Whatever career choice you take, you have to be a better person as an individual to show up at your best within that field. And I think sometimes we only focus on the craft and what it takes to be that person in the craft, and we forget the human being that brings the craft forward. So it was 11 years of that, and then post-training this every Saturday that I was telling you about.
Yes, but tell me about the 11 years. Do you remember the little shows you did, the adverts,
my first advert was a BP commercial.
Really? And I saw you in an ad.
Yes.
But that, I noticed it was you because I saw you. Yeah, I was like, what? It was after we spent that weekend in Durban. And then I was like, I've seen this ad, but
which weekend in Durban?
For the Sebenza Awards, when that was
I'm trying to think which ad it was. I don't remember.
Yeah, but you were in the car, so it must have been.
I think that I have 2 commercials in the car.
Yeah.
I think so.
Is it the same brand?
I'm not sure. I don't know. But no, I've done a couple of actually commercials sustained me. And if there's like any upcoming actors, I would highly recommend that you just, go to auditions, no matter what it is, for commercials that will sustain you.
So when you think about the first time you saw yourself on screen, the small screen.
Yes.
How was it like? Was it like, oh my gosh, this is the moment? Or were you just like, wow, I still got a long way to go?
I didn't know I had a long way to go. Mm-hmm. I think everybody around you will be like, this is it. This is the big deal. This is, you know, and then you experience and you're like, where's my Oscar?
Where's my Grammy? Am I going to get Emmy for this?
What's going on? But like, yeah, no, man. Like, it was weird. It was awkward. It wasn't fun. You know? It wasn't fun. And Mina, for years, I struggled with body dysmorphia.
What?
Yeah, and I was, it wasn't diagnosed, but I just noticed Mina.
When we have we diagnose our when a child.
Wait, I hope.
Okay, but we're not talking about. Maybe you should go get yourself a.
I do have a therapist.
No, not a therapist.
It was.
I was gonna say a medical degree because
oh yeah, girl.
I'll
be diagnosing. But essentially, what I'm saying is, I use these terms to define what the experience was.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I saw myself in the best light growing up most of the time.
Wow, that's shocking.
Yeah, you just you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I have tinges of that. But then people would be like, what are you talking about? And so I have to give myself like a day or two. And then when I look at whatever it is, whether it's my acting work or a picture, and then be like, oh, actually, I do look beautiful.
Wow.
So it's weird.
So what things that would honestly bother you? And how did you manage to eventually just get over them if you have?
My teeth.
Really?
Yeah.
Girl, okay.
No, well, I got braces.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was my teeth, and I would say just I just had issues with symmetry on my face.
Okay.
Yeah, I struggled a lot with that. I researched as much as I possibly could on like natural ways to try and rectify. I don't think there was an issue, but like I wasn't confident in myself. And so I found ways to take care of my face that didn't involve chemicals and things like that. And I think with the practice of that, I just started to appreciate how I look.
Wow.
Yeah. And my hair was also a thing. And I think that's a huge thing with us Black girls growing up, you know? The standard was something else.
Wow.
That was away from us.
You have such beautiful hair.
Thank you.
Like you're known for your afro, so
I know it's exactly it's crazy. But like it also just goes to show. I mean, I don't think there's anyone. Okay, let me not speak about the world. Yeah. The world is a crazy place.
Yeah.
But let me speak about home, which is South Africa. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't gone through abuse in the sense that they were told that they were something other than what they were, and they were convinced of that so much, to the point that they stopped believing and loving themselves. And that's a violence that we've all gone through, unfortunately. And for me, on my personal journey, I just had to, I really had to be honest about my experience about things. And I think in abusive dynamics, people will try to convince you that you're not experiencing what you're experiencing so that they can continue to do what they're doing to you. And we experience that on a mass scale. So actually, no, this is what I am feeling. This is, I don't like this, or I like this, or I don't want to be here, or I want to be here. Those small things are so important as a human being.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you went from just trying to hustle your way through, and eventually things just came together. You're on a hit show, and then next thing you know, you're on another hit show again. You move from Showmax to Netflix. So you can pretty much say you've done it all at this point. But has the experience been what you imagined it will be?
You know, interestingly enough, I was watching this interview with Bonang. I'm not sure if it was between Bonang Matema and Thando Tabete, but she essentially said it's so hard to make a star now because of like, you know, we have social media, we have TikTok, we have Instagram. Like, there's so many different ways to make a star. And so I acknowledge and I'm privileged with the platform that I have right now and the fact that I could have showcased my gifts. But we also worked very hard and we sacrificed parts of our humanity to just, take up that space. So no, it's not what I expected it to be, but it is a humbling experience. And I always try to keep sober-minded about the power that I do have and the power that I don't have. So it's interesting. I think the childish fantasies of what it meant to be famous are dissipating, and the reality of, the industry that I exist in, the space and the world that I exist in this time is starting to seep in. And I'm very happy with where I am and the platform that I have and where we're going.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you've gone through different part of your careers and you've discovered your strengths and weaknesses and all of that. But what would you say has been the biggest challenge in terms of, just when you look at the entire thing, the side where people are saying, but also the production side of things, the colleagues, the family, what would you say it has been your biggest challenge in the industry?
I would say not knowing what the actual rules are. It's very easy to play and win a game when the rules are clear. 1 + 1 = 2. But sometimes the rules on paper aren't necessarily the rules around you and the rules in which everybody operates on. And then also in different environments, everybody's operating on a different set of rules in the entertainment industry. So I would say it's very difficult for me to navigate.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, just in terms of standards of working.
Okay.
Standards of addressing things. Like I would say, mhlampe, Khosi, you and I are working together and the production says, it's a safe space. You guys can come to us about anything.
Okay.
And then you come to them about anything. And then it's not a safe space anymore.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So not knowing what the actual rules are and then also being brave enough to stand in my truth about who I am and how I want to do things and how I understand the industry to be. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe there's an aspiring actress or actor watching this and they hear you, but maybe not getting it. Because I'm sure whatever it is that you go through and you experience, they can't imagine it because they're looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And then once you get to that point where you feel like, okay, I'm getting close, there's little things that might make you start questioning if this is really the path. So do you have an experience maybe where you felt like, maybe this is not where I should be?
100%. I was lucky enough to have, a different experience, a more pleasant experience on the set of Umjolo. I think for me that was how a film set should run, and that's how people should treat each other. And that hasn't been a consistent experience on all the film sets I've ever experienced in my life. And so film and TV sets. And I would say that you really just have to give yourself the time to understand the climate, and the character of the people that you're working with. And then, you got to make your choices from there without compromising who you are. And people are going to try to make you compromise who you are.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of life. It's not even just our industry. But you got to make some choices, and sometimes you won't be able to choose your battles. Sometimes your battle, the battles that you face are going to choose you because you don't want to compromise yourself. And that's the reality of the South Africa we live in, unfortunately. In other spaces, it is a little better, but they still go through some of the things that, we're fighting for human rights, basically what I'm saying. Yeah, we're fighting to be treated well, to be paid fairly, to not have to go through somebody like who's asking for a trade or a favor.
So that's an actual thing.
It can happen. And sometimes it can happen. It can happen. Sometimes people sometimes people aren't happy that you aren't easy to get to in that way. And sometimes people aren't happy that you are honest. And, if we link it to spirituality, I mean, if you believe in God, that's the way of the enemy. Having a front and then you find out it's not even what I thought it was,
Yeah.
There's so many traps in life that you would be wise to figure out what your own philosophies are and then operate with that no matter the environment and no matter what's being presented to you.
So then when you listening to this, maybe let's say, like we said, you're an aspiring singer or actress and so forth. What are the things that you would advise to look out for? And be like, okay, when you start seeing these signs, that's your cue to leave or leave it alone.
Oh, wow. And without making people paranoid, just like people not respecting your personal space.
Okay.
Number one. And two, not having clear direction or vision or a clear agreement that you can write down on paper. But even when you do write it down on paper, things can still happen. So I would just say, I think the best advice I could give in terms of, moving from an empowered space is to, start your own business. That'll give you leverage, more leverage than.
What do you mean start your own business?
Like try to find other streams of income that don't involve so many people. Yeah, that don't involve so many people.
You don't have to rely.
Yeah, you don't have to rely on other people. And the reason I say, and also have like a very steady qualification that the world absolutely needs. Like COVID taught me that, hey, the world perhaps doesn't need actresses as much. It was tough. It was tough. It's valuable to have a skill set that people fundamentally rely on.
Is there a specific skill that perhaps you've thought about?
I definitely want to go back to school for law. I think it's important.
You think
lawyers are needed? Lawyers are important, and good lawyers are even more important.
Wow. At what point in your life did you realize, like, you know what?
Quite young, actually.
Okay.
I think there's just been a delay in regards to that. But yeah, being empowered about the law is very important as an upcoming artist. You want to know what's going on with the world, and don't think that just because this is the creative sector, you're just going to blow up and everything's going to be... No, like there's taxes that you need to understand. There's South African law. You need to understand the climate of the industry. And then you can move from an empowered space from there.
Right, right. Whew, wow. I mean, I guess education really is important regardless of which avenue you want to take in your life. But tell me, in most cases, people's personalities are shaped by significant parts of their lives. Do you recall in your lives, like certain events that occurred and you're like, this definitely is still affecting me, or this had a replica effect in my life?
Not just as an actress, but in general?
In general.
Ooh, girl, do you want to go that deep?
Take me.
Oh my God.
I'm ready to skydive with you. Let's be deep.
Wow, I would say the loss of my dad. Yeah. I think the way we lost him was, just, for me, it was unnecessary. Like, couldn't it? Like, I'm like, God, come on. But I do understand why, I think. Why he had to go the way he did. I hadn't seen him for 5 years. And I think something in my intuition was just like, I need to see him this year. And so we went to the UK to go see him. And he said, I'm coming home in September and we're going to start our family anew. And he came home in a casket. So I think that really impacted how much I don't... I was, I think I was 12. Yeah, I think I was 12. 2008, I think so, yeah.
Wow.
So the way in which that happened, I think it made me not take people for granted. But I also think it made me sacrifice myself too much to, preserve connections with people in a way that other people might not... they're just like, bruh, chill. I'll like, whatever. And I'm like, no, this could really be the last time. But I'm working through that.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of compassion for that little Nirvana inside.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always beautiful. At least I find it that way. When people know what still affects them or what they struggle with. So I think I really do command that quite a lot. So I just want you to then give advice to young girls or maybe even boys who are just fighting. Like you said, you say, go on audition back to back. And they're at the point where they feel like, you know what? I only have 2 auditions left to be. And it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Yeah. And whatever that means in their sense, you know? Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you do feel like it's time to wrap it up, maybe listen to that for a little bit. And when you're excited to come back to it, then you can come back with an empowered energy. But I always go back to self-development. It's so important for you to daily fight for your emotional space in your privacy, to just journal. There's like a great resource, like an AI therapist called the IFS Guide. And I recommend it to everybody because it's so valuable, especially if you can't afford therapy. And you can get it on your phone, like every day, learning how to process your emotions as quickly as you possibly can. You'll get over the rejections better because some of us come into the industry trying to resolve not being seen when we were children, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes we utilize our careers to cover or resolve some wounds. And I wouldn't advise that. It's always okay to pivot, but fight for your emotional space in private every single day and never put that power to heal your own wounds or to make yourself feel better on a job or another person or an environment or a group of people. Don't do that. So try to be the person that you need for yourself emotionally, I would say. Yeah.
Do you see yourself maybe doing something, like you said, you had thought about directing and stuff like that. But do you see yourself maybe pursuing that career, going behind the scene? And I mean, you talked about getting different streams of income and maybe that just might be it.
I mean, I am an entrepreneur and I have something called the Connect Supper Club where we align people of compatible values together. And I think with that, because it's so focused on business and social change, I think if I am going to go behind, I would definitely be the person finding the money for it and finding the people who can put the money towards, you know, a meaningful project. But yeah, that's entrepreneurship is where it's at for me right now.
Okay.
And connecting people.
I mean, I think that's so nice, honestly, because sometimes all it takes is just being in the right tribe or finding your tribe.
That's real.
A lot of people don't know, maybe it was just me, that you're a singer as well.
Yeah, girl.
I saw you dropping us. I was like, wait a minute now. I did not know about this. Yeah. Tell us about your music.
Wow, what about my music?
I mean, honestly, it's not your typical type of songs that South African are vibing and gelling to. There's a certain type of people who could not only perform and sing and let that be their day-to-day kind of music. What led you to... Because it's very soulful. You know what I mean? So what led you to maybe that genre specifically?
Well, with my latest single, Lost, it's a jazz song. And the only reason I did the jazz song is because on set for Umjolo, the Netflix production, our directors essentially asked me and some of the band members to create a song for one of the scenes. And so I wrote that song for that scene and then we recorded it outside of studio. And when the movie came out, we released the song. So that's the only reason I did jazz for that specific.
Okay, but that's not...
It's not my genre.
Really?
No.
I mean, it was kind of making sense though.
It does.
So then what would you say is your genre? you were to go full-time in music?
I'm definitely an alternative girl.
Yeah.
And I definitely do want to venture into pop music.
Okay. Yeah. Like who? Like, give me an example. Give me a song. It's I see myself singing this song, performing this song.
Okay, well, shucks. That's interesting. That's a good question. And the reference I'm going to give you is not even a pop song.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a pop song.
Okay. You did say you're very versatile.
That's okay. I think a mixture of like Sade and Lana Del Rey.
Which Sade song? Auntie?
Like Sweetest Taboo, baby.
Oh my gosh. Oh, child. Okay, but you do.
No, but I get what you say. You make sense. Even when I'm talking, I'm like, oh, no, why not?
I think that
this is my list.
So do you see yourself maybe dropping an album?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll work on an album.
Yeah.
You'll talk. Yeah.
Keep it versatile, as you're saying. You know, we want to hear a little bit of that, a little bit of that. But that's very beautiful.
And I think the world allows for that now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, like Beyonce.
Yeah, she does.
I can't keep up with the albums at this point.
Yeah.
1 minute.
It's country.
She's like, what is it? African King, you know?
Yes, Afrobeat.
You know what I mean? She's just here, just take my power.
Yes,
next thing, he's a cowboy. So I think it's true. You could really just, you know, but what about my piano? Do you see yourself?
Oh, girl, yeah. Song. Because, I mean, you can, like, it's honestly because it's storytelling in terms of singing.
Yeah,
you know, and songwriting. Cairo is someone I want to work with. You know, that Nseze song with Amifaku. That's my, like, if I could do more of that, that would be an honor.
But then, I mean, why aren't you, you know, trying to get into that? Like,
I mean, things take time.
Of course.
Things like there's processes, you know, you get to know people, you talk to people. You're like, this is what I do. Can we work in studio? So
we'll be waiting.
Things are happening, in the background.
Very much waiting.
Yeah.
So now, when we go back to your childhood, right? How many siblings do you have?
So I'm the only child between my mom and my dad, but there's 9 of us on my dad's side. Yeah, girl. Yeah, Smaning.
You know each other?
I know. I know 7 of them. 2 of them I've never met.
So are they supportive of your career?
Yeah, they do. Even the ones I don't know, they're very, very proactive online. Like Teresa and Noelle are just like...
So do you see yourself maybe settling down one day and having
getting married
family?
and stuff? I could. I do want a little bit. I want many children, actually.
Okay, you want 9 kids, like your dad.
No. I'm not trying to have 9 kids, but it would be nice to have a little basketball team.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But I mean, it's tough. Like the dating scene is tough, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
Everywhere.
Like, yeah. So
I think. Have you tried dating around the world?
I have.
How's that? Because I find that better.
It is on some levels, but I'm not impressed.
Okay, tell me.
And the reason I'm not impressed is just like this cultural things that I don't appreciate. Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, ideally, I would love to marry a South African man.
Yeah.
Ideally, I would love to marry a Zulu man.
Oh, specifically.
I would, ideally. I mean, I could marry a South African man. Xhosa men, no, you guys can stay my friends. Because Xhosa men make great friends for me.
Yeah,
I don't...
Just friends.
Yeah, just friends. And half of my family is Xhosa, but yeah, no, I'm good as... Yeah,
but have you tried dating European American?
I have dated... Americans and
so
Europeans.
The culture barrier is...
There's just nuances that, like, I don't know, bruh. Like, I want to... And when I say I'd like to marry a Zulu man.
Yeah.
I'd like to marry a Zulu man from KZN.
The hill you're willing to die on.
No, it's not the hill I want to die on. I don't want to die on that hill, Jase.
It sounds like you're willing to risk it all for a decent Zulu. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Risk it.
Honestly, I don't even blame you. I can't lie. Like, I think there's some really great South African men.
There's plenty. Yeah. No, but like Zulu men like just know how to love. No, it's just I don't know how to put it.
Tell me about the type of love you want.
I want a love where I can. So I'm very traditional, as you can see. Like I want to be able to be like I want la. And I'm not as
humble to start saying
you know, yeah. I want that kind of love where, like, if I'm by the ocean and I toss Utsurandi by the ocean, I'm not looked at as like what are you doing, girl? Yeah, like I want a love where, you know, the person can see it's not just this world that we're living in. It's not the clothes that we're wearing. Like they can see beyond and they can notice patterns. And that's something that I appreciate about our Zulu culture. Things are so profoundly deep and spiritual. Yeah. Ingane mine yabo mainovalo animkhiphu inyoni, you know, like small things like that, and I want that for my
your
children.
Family. Yes,
I want that.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Now that you've touched on spirituality, let's go in that. You're a very spiritual person. Was that how you were raised, or because some people are just born with that? You could be in a home or house where you don't go to church and like we're just existing.
Yeah.
But with you, how did you come about to become very profoundly spiritual?
I grew up in a very spiritual family. My grandmother Uko Peti Masugu was profoundly spiritual, and and she was raised in a spiritual family with a father who was a pastor of the Ethiopian church, and Ubeyinyaga at the same time. Okay. So the world of Christianity and also traditionalism merged in my family. And yeah, I just, you know, tanda to dig deeper about the reason why things happen the way they do. I'm not satisfied most times with just, this just happened because. I'm like, no, and we need to get to the root of it. So
you don't believe in coincidence?
No, I don't. I mean, things can happen. I mean, I think there's a bracket for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, no. I don't think things just happen, Jay.
Do you have... or have you ever had a spiritual battle where you are literally torn apart, where you're trying to understand, as me serving God and me appreciating my ancestors as same, can they coexist?
Yes.
Do you ever, or have you ever felt that way? And if maybe you've made peace and the two for you can coexist, how did you get to that point?
Well, I personally got to that point because I started to read the Bible in a more theological way. There's like a YouTube channel called The Bible Project that helped me understand the Bible in ways that not even the church could help me understand, you know? Like there were things that I needed to get that you can't just, for me, like there were certain, because the Bible, the English Bible has been adapted from Jewish language, you know, and so it was hard for me to understand the context, and I couldn't really relate and see myself. And so understanding the context in which the Bible was written from was helpful. But then also when I started to understand the functionality, the science and the psychology behind our traditional culture, I understood ukuthi yonke into esiyenzayo, like imbeleko, umhlonyane, umemulo, all of those things are markers for growth. This is to develop a human being within a community.
Right.
And each and every individual within that community deserves to be developed in that way. So it stopped, the conversation stopped moving away from, am I worshiping my ancestors now? Or do I work? Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not. This is about self-development. And it's about maintaining umsamo and your family.
Yeah.
And the health of that family. And I think even within, our religions and even within our practices as African people, sometimes we don't get what the plot is. And then we just vibe and we do things. And there can be a lot of dysfunction when you don't understand, why am I doing this? Why is this necessary? What do I need to do and what do I not need to do? So that discernment comes with really just digging deeper and not being afraid to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ask because it's something I don't know about most people, but I certainly do struggle with. Is me speaking to my ancestors or giving them praise. I'm afraid, what if God looks at that as me worshiping? And I don't know how many times we come across the fact that God is a very jealous God. And that one, I don't know, maybe because obviously I'm going through my own things, but I constantly see it. I am a jealous God. No God should be put before me. So me appreciating my ancestors, does it make God jealous? Does he view that as a worship, as me putting other gods before him? Because I do call upon my ancestors. But every time I do, I always make sure that it is understood that God will always be first. You, my ancestors, and you taught me that God is the way. And I hope it's okay that you understand that you always be the God I worship.
I get that.
But I don't know how they feel about that as well.
No, I get that. Yeah. But Umvelingangi is the name of God, and that's the beginning of Umsamo.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's the beginning. Like if we trace it all the way back, who's the source? Umdali, Umvelingangi. And I do think our ancestors acknowledge,
of course,
God.
Yeah.
What I will say is that, like, it's funny, I was talking to my nieces yesterday and I was like, they were talking about this green tea that they buy from Spa. And they're like, we can't find it anymore. And we love that thing so much. And I'm like, it's so interesting because I'll go through the same thing where like ice cream or something. And then it's discontinued and I don't find it anymore. And I honestly feel like it's because God is like, there's a dependency that you're developing now. And I think that now you're starting to, even though you don't think it's worship, you're starting to worship it in that way. And I've had that experience even with romantic partners, even with friends, where it's like, you're not leaning on me and my wisdom anymore. Even in your relationship with your ancestors, living or dead, lean on me first, navigate with me first. And I think we try to segment and segregate God from every process of our lives and we forget that God is an omnipresent God. So the things that we speak of, he knows our hearts, he knows what's going on in some.
Yeah.
He knows what the solution is. And he knows the posture in which each of us need to take if we are going down that route. And that route is not for everybody. And that's completely okay. But in Naga is that, like, I think whether the chat is ancestors, whether the chat be your phone or the things that you eat or the people around you, I think God just doesn't want us to forget the source. And sometimes, even in this conversation, maybe now there's a codependency that develops.
Yeah.
And that in itself is worship. And of God is jealous in that way and be like, actually, let me sever the tie with this connection and you learn how to connect with me again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what's very interesting? That's how I fight my battles. Whenever I feel that I'm struggling with something, whether maybe it's alcohol. Like, okay, maybe I'm drinking a lot too much. I don't like drinking too much because it's not good for my figure. But sometimes, like, especially when I'm at events, and I start looking at it in that sense, like, I'm not supposed to drink. It's not good for me. I know it's not allowed in my
your
Christianity, you know what I mean? So I then ask myself, like, okay, am I worshiping something else? Does this mean I'm worshiping this bottle that I won't let go? Or whatever it is that I'm struggling to let go and I know it's not good for me. I always look at it in that sense that I'm trusting on this thing more than I'm trusting my God.
Yes.
And that has, been quite helpful in my self-mastery journey. But I just want to ask you this. Do you believe you have a calling then?
Yeah, and I think everybody does.
Of course, but a spiritual calling.
Yeah. I definitely, I think everyone is anointed in some way, and I can definitely see my gift clearly.
Okay, tell me about your gift, girl.
Girl, you getting so deep. Okay. I know how to connect concepts and recognize patterns and it's funny because there was a study and Trevor Noah spoke about this on Diary of a CEO where he was like, he's got like this intuition where he can tell when we should leave the party now. And there's been a study scientifically done that children who were abused or had gone through hectic abuse growing up, they develop that that knack, that intuition. And I have it. And I'm very good at sussing out people, reading energies, dreaming about things. And it's, I don't separate science from God. I think those are the rules of the world, separating God from science. I think that was just another revelation of that, gifts people do have gifts. And however you decide to interpret that gift, whether scientifically or in a more spiritual context, that's up to you, but it's the same thing. I still can sense.
Wow.
And then, just being able to connect people and things and concepts and recognize patterns and be like, it's looking like lento ikamuga from someone alungile because we at the wrong surname. I have a good intuition. So do you think then perhaps was there an experience rather that like you said, people who went through a certain, I think it's like there's a word they say what's the word? Is it like when
it's almost like evolved. It's almost like when you went through something and you're using it for the good instead of the bad, right? So I just want to know, was there a certain trauma or a traumatic event in your life that made you so alert of your surrounding?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I'll mention one. But seeing my dad try to kill my mom in front of me was like, that was big.
Yeah.
And then see how my mom and my nanny at the time try to save themselves from that. And seeing my dad manic and kind of just, he was abusive and he had bipolar. And that combination is not a good combination, So, that really made me alert. And I think when I talk about some of the things that I go through, I'm very nonchalant about it. And people are like, girl, why did you say it like that? And I'm just, and I actually have to be very compassionate with myself and be like, it's because, sad to say, I'm used to it, and it is what it is. And so, as gentle as I am, I'm also quite strong or let me say tolerant. I've gotten used to high conflict environments and I can navigate those with a calm, and I know how to navigate that because of how I had to navigate that situation and how I had to try and calm my father down. And I think I was 4 years old. I was very young.
Wow.
So that's what made me alert.
Yes, but I'm sure all that you went through also brought out a very positive.
It did.
So what are those characteristics that you've picked up? Okay, you know what? That was. But also, I wouldn't be like this or like that
if I hadn't.
Yeah. What are the kind things about you?
Like being able to forgive people and like recognize where a certain behavior is coming from.
Yeah.
But at the same time also, because Christ did this, the most loving thing you can do is call people out or call people in and tell them how it is. And so I would say that, and like grace, but also a little bit of a fighter spirit when I need to. Like Coco. I have an inner Coco.
Just only comes
out when it's tipped over a little too much. There's an inner Coco inside.
I'm scared, child. That being said, that was a lovely, lovely time spent with the one and only Nirvana Nokwe. We were so happy to have you, girl. That was a nice chat, and we hope to see you soon. And we wish you all the best in your avenues. We know you're going to go out there and kill it. We cannot wait to see more of you.
Thank you, girl. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
And you're such a lovely, beautiful host.
Oh,
I'm absolutely proud of you.
Go on, stop.
Stop.
Please do make sure that you like, subscribe, and drop a comment for our lovely Nirvana. Love you. Till next time.